So let us revisit, before starting 1.3, let us revisit what we did in 1.1 and 1.2. So in 1.1, my dear students, we talked about communication. I told you what communication is. It is the sharing and exchanging of information. Then we moved on to 1.2, in which we discussed about utilities of communication. For example, you would be able to persuade people, you will be regarded in the organization where you work if you have effective communication skills. Then we talked about leadership and communication, that effective leader will always have excellent communication skills. Only then he will be able to share his ideas, messages to his followers. Now let us talk about the most important unit in this week, and that is the process of communication. Now, before I explain you process of communication, it is very important for me to make you understand the literal meaning of the word process. So what comes to your mind when you hear the word process? When I hear the word process, steps come in my mind. That a process means way of doing something. For instance, how do you make a cup of tea? You follow certain steps. And then when you follow certain steps, you get the desired result. Similarly, communication is a process. You follow certain steps, you follow certain things, only then you get the desired result. So initially, this is the typical communication process figure. So there are two parties to the communication process. Number one is sender. Needless to say, sender is someone who sends the message, and the receiver, again, needless to say, the receiver is someone who receives the message. So the first point is this, that sender will always have an idea. I have to say something to you. I have to deliver any message to my students. So I have an idea, but unless and until I decode that idea, the audience will not be able to understand. If I have something in my mind, would you be able to understand? Would you be able to read my mind? Do you have the divine ability of reading my mind? No one does. So as a sender, I have an idea. This is the first step. That idea needs to be encoded. I have to encode that idea. And then step number 3, sender produces the message in a medium. And then sender has to select a medium of communication, a channel of communication. What is channel of communication? Anything that carries your message from the sender to the receiver. There could be different channels of communication, face-to-face, internet, Skype, Zoom, TV, SMS. See, there are different mediums of communication. And then after carefully choosing the channel of communication, sender transmit the message to the audience, to the receiver. Now what would the receiver do? Receiver would decode the message. Receiver would try to understand the message. And then after understanding the message, receiver would try to respond. And if the receiver fails to understand anything, he will always have the chance to ask for feedback. Now this is what happens in my class. When I explain anything to my students, after that I have communicated, after that I have delivered my message to my students, there is always a possibility that students ask something to clarify that concept. So that is feedback. If receiver does not understand anything, the receiver will always have that possibility. Receiver can ask for feedback, particularly in a face-to-face communication. Feedback will not be delayed. If you are talking to someone electronically, if you see an advertisement for something, and if you find anything ambiguous, you can always respond to them on their email ID. So feedback is always there. So just to recapitulate again, the sender will have an idea in the communication process. I am telling you the steps again. The sender encodes the idea as a message. The sender produces the message in a transmittable medium. The sender transmits the message through a channel. The audience receives the message. Audience or receiver tries to decode the message and then responds to the message and then sends for the feedback if there is anything unclear. Thank you so much. I hope that week 1 is clear to you. Thank you for listening.